Coming up next on the voice of Alabama politics, disregarding the law, also expanding freedom under Title IX, and Alabama Republicans pounce on Walz.
Take it easy, dude.
Oh, yeah.
I know that you will.
Yeah, well, the dude abides.
Just chill, flock of seagulls. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to the voice of Alabama politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, columnist and investigative reporter at APR. Welcome.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
And it's a slow time in Alabama politics, but nationally, with the presidential race, it is one of the most interesting races I have ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, coming out of the convention, the Republican Party looked like a juggernaut, like a bull moose, like a elephant ready to stampede. And then all of a sudden, President Joe Biden drops out of the race. Kamala Harris jumps in, and it's a whole new ballgame. Now, nothing that happens nationally is going to change the fact that Donald Trump is going to sweep Alabama. Mm-hmm. He's going to win it by double digits, if not more. I mean, if they're possible, right? So I was wondering, why did Alabama Republicans so profoundly jump on the selection of Tim Walz for BP? I mean, it was Susan, it was like you'd have thought that they had a chance to win in Alabama.
Yeah.
They did not. And they jumped on him with all the same usual stuff. And it doesn't matter in Alabama.
No.
People don't care. They know who's going to win.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing to me. I mean, like, if Walt and Kamala Harris win, it's going to be death. You know,
Yeah.
It's all this death and destruction. And why do Alabama Republicans care about that? It's not going to affect the election in any way whatsoever in Alabama. And nationwide, it's going to be a tight race even there.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why Alabama Republicans really care, other than getting headlines.
I mean, Josh, the Democrats haven't said a word because they know what cards they've got to play with. I mean, they were sort of like, yeah, we'll just chill here. We know what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, we had Shamari Figures on our podcast, Alabama Politics, this week, for those who'd like to listen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this week, and he has probably one of the more important races in the country.
True.
Against Caroline Dobson, and so, you know, in talking to him, he said what we have all thought, which when you inserted Kamala Harris at the top of that ticket, it gave his campaign a nice little boost.
That's true.
You know, they were plugging along as it is. And so I would imagine that a lot of what the Republicans are doing is trying to tamp down excitement for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Good luck with that. Because I don't know if you've noticed some of the reaction to these folks. It's a younger ticket. I mean, the Republicans have got that really old guy running now, and that just keeps rambling along at events, and he's just not relating very well to minorities, to minority voters. And so I think that it plays well down ballot, really, really well down ballot, and that's what they're struggling with.
Well, you know, and to my shame, I didn't think about that, but you're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. And Ms. Dobbs just put in $1.9 million. She loaned her campaign. So that's a big deal. I mean,
it is.
He's got to do some fundraising to counter that. But you're absolutely right, Josh. Thank you for bringing that up. I think it's, what I think is important, what we're seeing on the Democratic side is a kind of joy, which they keep talking about, and exuberance that we really haven't seen. And I compare it to like what you see in religion. You know, and when you have a joyous congregation, you get converts. You know, you add to your church. But when you're just out there hunting heretics all the time, you know, it kind of is a subtraction to the church. You know?
Well, and the exciting thing for me in all of this is that we have a number of young people that work for us that are, you know, right at 30 years old, close to 30. They've never seen this before. They've never seen in their, you know, in their life as far as them being aware of what was going around them, of things that we've seen in the past. This is, you know, the way it used to be, where there's joy and exuberance and excitement and, you know, and not all this backbiting and meanness and all of that. And I'm just glad they're actually being able to see this.
And that, Josh, you know, Susan makes a good point, because, you know, most of those people, they were very, very young when Barack Obama's campaign took off. They were still young, because most of them were in their 20s. They were young when Donald Trump took office. They were, you know, really becoming much more aware when Joe Biden took office. And all they've seen is one young black, energetic black guy, kind of they remember, a guy that talked about how it was American carnage, and it was kind of unusual for a president. Love him or hate him, he's unusual for a president. And then Joe Biden, who did a good job, but became so feeble, you know, that he could not continue to run.
Right.
Yeah, well, by unusual, did you mean weird? Because that's what they are. But listen, you know, you're right. And what I was going to say, the Kamala Harris campaign at this point sort of mimics that hope and change attitude of the Obama era.
Yeah.
And you're right about the happiness and the joy and the, hey, you know, and Tim Walz was perfect for this, to say, you know, we're going to take care of our neighbors.
Yeah.
You know, I want you to be my neighbor. We may not agree, but I'm going to take care of you just as though we do. And this is the America that we want, an America where we work together, an America where we believe in America, not one where the next person elected to office is going to destroy everything. You know, and there's going to be a dark American carnage type situation going on. And, you know, the other point I would say is Republicans do not have policies outside of, oh my God, everybody's wanting to kill us.
Yeah, well,
that's it.
In addition to that, I want to say, because of the policies that they're actually beating him up for, which is free college for poor kids, you know, free breakfast and lunch for children, affordable health care, and other things like that. As a result, the life expectancy in Minnesota is 81, where it's 73 in Alabama. Infant mortality is 7.56 deaths per live births in Alabama, where it's 4.5 there in Minnesota. Uninsured residents, 9.85 here in Alabama, 6% in Minnesota. And the poverty rate, 9% in Minnesota, where it's 15% here. So some of these policies that they've implemented there in Minnesota are actually working to help your neighbor.
And they say,
well, you know, the facts have a liberal bias. I'm sorry.
well, and again,
I love my statistics. I'm sorry.
When I talk to normal people and you say, hey, how do you feel about feeding kids at school? How do you feel about doing this and that? How do you think about free education for some the kids can't afford it and all that? You know, they're all for it.
And I have to say,
now you're going to have to pay for it, which is, you know, where the rubber meets the road. But go ahead, last thought. Susan.
Last thought. Now, I have to say the Republicans here in Alabama did make sure that the children not only got their free lunches during the school year this year, but are also being fed through the summer as a result of Speaker Ledbetter.
We can feed prisoners, we can feed children.
Yes.
Well, and I think you were saying Speaker Ledbetter
Yes.
really led the charge
Yes,
on
he
making
did.
sure those kids got fed during
He
the
did.
summer, and congratulations. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
My personal biggest pet peeve is kids who are not properly restrained, whether that be in a booster seat, a car seat, or even a simple seatbelt. Kids, they become projectiles, and it's terrifying.
It absolutely breaks my heart to know that something so innocent could be punished so severely.
Your children rely on you to be that person that says, no, you need to put your seatbelt on.
Your home is your most valuable asset. But what if someone tried to steal it from you? Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
As a district attorney, I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of property fraud. That's why I'm proud to support the Montgomery County Probate Court's REACT program.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
So don't wait. Sign up for REACT today and protect your home.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. I recently read an interview with Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch, where he was speaking with a conservative columnist at the New York Times, David French. And the new book is very interesting. It's got some great stuff in it. Overruled the human toll of too many laws. But the thing that caught me that Justice Gorsuch said, and it's profound and yet obvious, he's talked about the United States. He says we have three things that are absolutely radical, and they're the greatest things that we have. And that is, we are all created equal. We all have inalienable rights. And the powers that the government have come from the consent of the people. Those are obvious to us. Now, in 1788, when they ratified that beautiful Constitution that has all those wonderful things in it, that was only true. Those things only were true for white men. If you states decided who voted, but if you wanted to vote, you generally had to be a white man and a property owner. The rights for women and African Americans and other people did not come around until much later. One after a bloody civil war, and the other ones after years of protest, and women's suffrage took long to come into fruition. So, Susan, when he talks about that today, what we see is the willingness of the American people and the American government to evolve. You can say that the Constitution is static, but those ideals now apply to a lot of people that they did not apply to.
They certainly do. And the Constitution, while being perceived as static, was written in such a way to allow it to grow, to allow the people to grow with it, just as a centered document. But it's certainly grown out into acceptance of all different people, for all different kinds of rights, which is a beautiful thing. But I think that's the way they wrote it actually allowed it to do that. I mean, the genius of James Madison and those who contributed, Josh, was that through time, the northern founders knew that slavery was atrocious, and even though they owned slaves, they knew it had to end, but they compromised. But these rights have expanded. They very rarely contracted. Now, there's a big battle across the nation, especially in Alabama and southern states, against the new rules applying to Title IX. And the rule is, it's put there as basically an outgrowth of 1964 Voting Rights Act and discrimination based on sex and gender and blah, blah, blah. The Title IX, the way that they want to apply it now, and it was supposed to be applied, is to stop the bullying of transgender kids and gay kids and kids that are different, And so Alabama, Florida, Georgia, they've all fought against it, saying it's terrible, it's communist, it's whatever the local word is, and mainly because they want to appeal to the religious base of the Republican Party.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that a Supreme Court justice that has been part of taking away so many rights that we have worked for and retracting those rights is musing about the equality of people as they kill the Voting Rights Act and kill Roe v. Wade and do a number of other things. And yes, Title IX is their next step. It's the next thing in the crosshairs when they're going to try to kill that as well. Because let's not be fooled about this. They are white males, white Christian males, and that's who they're serving at this point. All right. And they see no problem with contracting a lot of these laws that have aided people. Let's take the Voting Rights Act, for example, that they've gutted while Gorsuch has been on that court. That Voting Rights Act only allowed certain things if municipalities and states had violated the parameters of the Voting Rights Act within 10 years. Otherwise, you were free and clear of the pre-clearance qualifications that were required. Alabama and certain municipalities in Alabama couldn't do it, and they sued, and this court allowed and basically has said the things that we would have ordinarily in previous courts found unconstitutional and discriminatory. We've found, all right, we're okay with that now.
Well,
because we think things have changed.
Yeah, I mean, I said at the time when Chief Justice Roberts said, well, things have changed in the South. And I went, when's the last time you've been in the South, dude?
Absolutely.
I mean, do you think that Arlington, Virginia, or wherever you live is the South? Because it's not.
Bring your RV on down here. We'll, to see the real South.
Well, he doesn't have the big RV. That's Clarence.
Clarence Thompson. I'm sorry.
Clarence Thompson has the big RV. But, it's just, to me.
But does he? Or did somebody buy it for him?
Well, look, somebody gave it, forgave his loan. We all should have great friends like that. I'm sure if I were a Supreme Court justice, I would have great friends too. But this thing is about not recognizing the decency and humanity of other people, especially children. And that is just god awful.
It's unacceptable.
Or as Tim Walz would say, mind your own damn business. It's just been a favorite saying of mine since my mother taught it to me when I was a kid, which was directed at me, mind your own damn business. But, this is what we see. I mean, bless his heart, Senator Chris Elliott, who I happen to like. I do not know why he has such a beef with history and archives and libraries, because he's wanting to, once again, he's put forward a bill that would allow just arbitrarily to kick people off the History and Archives Board, kick them off library board, simply because they had a 1-hour program on LGBTQ history in Alabama. But there's this movement to restrict what people can read, what people can know, and restrict the knowledge about history.
Yeah, and this meeting was a few years ago, actually, now. And he brought this bill up last year. Here we go again, and now I think he's expanding it, as you said, to libraries. Where is this repression of history coming from here? It bothers me a little bit to wonder where all of this is rooted.
Yeah.
But and what they're trying to do is be able to, the legislature to be able to manage all these boards.
Yeah.
Ultimately, is what they're after.
Well, they can't manage what they got half the time, Josh. You got 30 seconds. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the last time I talked to large groups of people and we all went over the problems of the state, the one thing people kept bringing up to me was that damn Archives and History Board. I mean, they're just out of control. It's somebody who doesn't have anything better to do. I mean, he doesn't have any. Put a policy up. There's got to be a problem in Mobile you can address. So, I mean, there's got to be a problem in Baldwin County that you can address. There's got to be a problem somewhere that you can address that's not this. It's something real.
Yeah. Well, we keep propping up fake boogeymen so we can knock them down. That seems to be the thing in politics. It's a big deal. Anyway, you're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
My personal biggest pet peeve is kids who are not properly restrained, whether that be in a booster seat, a car seat, or even a simple seatbelt. Kids, they become projectiles, and it's terrifying.
It absolutely breaks my heart to know that something so innocent could be punished so severely.
Your children rely on you to be that person that says, no, you need to put your seatbelt on.
125.
As a paramedic, you wouldn't believe the things that we've seen.
I've seen all types of horrible things.
I mean, we're there basically picking up the pieces from your worst day.
Everyone is just driving and not paying attention.
We all have the same goal. All of us want to go home alive and safe and harm nobody else in the process.
Slow down. Be careful. Care about the other people on the road. Don't be the reason that someone else doesn't go home tonight.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. This past week, John Mooresmith, prominent attorney, who helped write Alabama's Administrative Procedures Code Act, he helped write that act. And it's the very act that the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission is accused of violating. So Mr. Mooresmith came out in an op-ed that ran statewide, I think, and said, no, you absolutely have violated this act. Now, John McMillan, the commissioner of, he's the director of AMCC, has told people that his lawyers told him that Mr. Mooresmith is wrong, even though Mr. Mooresmith wrote it. I mean, Josh, I said it before that maybe it was time for John Millen to think about stepping down. I'm pretty sure if you're going to take the word of these numpties they've got over at AMCC, as opposed to Mooresmith, it's time for you to go.
Yeah, we've been saying this for a while, and I mean, you look at what's happened with this case and what the many lawsuits that have come from this, and it doesn't. All you have to be is marginally familiar with how the legal system works to know that there is a serious problem with the way that the AMCC has behaved here. All right, because if you have these sorts of lawsuits and they're just frivolous lawsuits that, sour grapes, you didn't get your contract, and they go before a judge, there's no judge in this world that is going to side with several out-of-state companies or even some in-state companies over a board, a commission put together by the peers of that judge in the state, unless there are serious issues.
Yeah.
And what Mooresmith pointed out is exactly right. They have violated the AAPA, which was put in place to address specifically the things that they have done in this, where it seems as though, and they have admitted at times, that they have done things that benefited some companies and not others.
Yes.
And that's what the AAPA was supposed to guard against. And it was supposed to put in place a grievance process for people who had those grievances. And it was supposed to put in place a set method for determining these contracts. And they have not followed that. And it's just that simple.
It's these two lawyers that McMillan keeps relying on that have gotten them into the trouble they're in now.
Well,
why are they still there?
Yeah, you got a clean house over there.
Yeah.
I mean, look, when they made the decision to reopen the portal after the deadline, which was clearly against the way the law is written. Right. The black letter of the law says you cannot reopen it. No. John McMillan was in the room, we understand, when, according to court filings and testimony, was in the room. Right. They let him do it anyway. Yeah. I mean, the same thing when they allowed some people and not others to submit documents that they did not let other people do, and it gave them an advantage.
Right. Or thumb drives, or there were so many exceptions that certain people got that other people did not get, that's where we started with all this mess.
I mean, Josh, you cannot say that this was a fair process by any means. And to come out and call anybody, like they've said derisive things about us. They've said derogatory things about us. They're saying derogatory things about Mooresmith. Anybody that challenges them is evil, because you know who says that kind of thing? Somebody's got something to hide. Somebody who's done something wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't even have to dig into it to understand that they're wrong, because they have admitted that they were wrong twice.
Right.
Well,
there you go.
They themselves have gone back on their process and said, we screwed that up. Let us try this again. And then, we're going to agree that we screwed that up and we're going to try this again. And they violated it. It's so clear and obvious. That's what I keep telling people. I want the product to be in the hands of patients more than probably anybody. Okay. And the fact that it's not drives me nuts. But at the same time, you can't allow this process to go forward until you correct the problems that happened on the front end.
Well, what I want to know, and this is, I think, a point. Okay, this is a board and a commission that is overseeing a multi-billion-dollar operation, pretty much so. All right, they're overseeing it. Now, all right, they have what is the equivalent to a CEO in John McMillan, who has allowed the process to run amok. Now, the board of directors, which I would call the commissioners, the commissioners' own reputation is being tarnished. Each one of them is being tarnished by what's happening at the group that they oversee, the organization they oversee. There is no board in a Fortune 500 company that for long will allow the CEO to keep screwing up and not do something about it. I mean, look at what happened at Boeing. It took them a while, but they bounced that guy on his ear.
Right. And you've already had one or two commissioners, just bow out of the whole process.
Because they were embarrassed.
Because they were embarrassed and they don't want their name attached to this, which is going to continue to evolve. They need to clean house over there. Every from John McMillan, the lawyers, all of them, they just need to clean house and get somebody in there that knows what they're doing, that doesn't have a dog in this fight to go in there and do this the way it's supposed to be done.
You might want to take a page from Joe Biden, step aside, let somebody younger in there to do the job. Josh, any thoughts on that before we move? We got to move on. Hey, there's been, there's criticism about any politician. And Britt, Senator Katie Britt gets her share of criticism, and we've criticized her in our news reporting and stuff. But one thing she has not got enough credit for is bringing home the bacon. She took a seat that was held by Richard Shelby, who was the king of bringing home the bacon to Alabama. Just recently, she brought home another $20 million just for Birmingham, Susan.
Just last month.
Yeah, just last week. But she's got another $6 million the other day, another $73 million here. I mean, it's amazing what she has done in 2 years.
2 years. In 2 years, here's where the buck stops. In 2 years, she went from being one of 100 and raising money, 100 of 100 and raising money bringing home money for their state, to now she's now 9th of the senators that are bringing home the most amount of money to their state. She went from 100 at the bottom. Now she's 9th in senators that are bringing home the most amount of money for their own state.
Josh, I know you don't you don't agree with Senator Britt's policies, but when you're the 9th best senator at bringing home money to your state. And look, she voted for that big package that brought home so much money to Alabama. You know who didn't vote for that package in the Senate? Tommy Tuberville. So all that money that came here came from Britt, not from Tubbs.
Yeah, that's the one thing. I felt the same way about Richard Shelby. And the reason that I appreciated Richard Shelby, and so many people appreciated Richard Shelby, was even if you disagreed with him, you could not argue with his effectiveness in funding important projects in this state, all from one end to the other. The amount of money that he brought home and important projects that he had his name under was astounding, really. Yeah. And it's nice to see that she is following in those footsteps. And, I wish she would stay out of some of the partisan hackery that Richard Shelby stayed out of, and because I don't think she needs it. I think she's got the backing of the base. And I just think, that she would be so much better off to do these things. And man, I think she's great, compared to the alternative. So it's,
All right. Well, I think that's going to be the last word. Okay. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.